Hello, in today's unboxing we take a look at the Franco-Prussian War Prussian skirmish line from Perry Miniatures. These really are excellent models, however I'd like to do this unboxing and illustrate a couple of minor issues I found when buying the figures which we weren't able to discover when looking on pictures online. Now the box itself is illustrated by Peter Dennis, familiar to anyone who's bought any Perry or Woggins Atlantic miniatures recently. I'm just going to move the sprues to one side for a second. There's a couple of good points here. First of all, it includes bases. Now I won't be able to use these specific sizes for any of my projects at the moment, but I really like the fact they include bases, as it shows they're really thinking about what gamers need and what will add value to any gaming set. I also like this illustration leaflet. I don't know much about the Franco-Prussian War, and this includes quite a lot of information about the regiments and the layout of Prussian troops, as well as painting guides and a couple of flags. As anyone who's had to pay for flags will know, this is a real time and money saver. Now the other thing is really nice is these numbered part layouts, so you can sort of tell which are the 1860s pickle helmets, which ones are the later issue. Now I'm going to move the command sprue to one side for a second, and I'm going to take a moment to look at a Wargames Illustrated article. In this article you can see a few good pictures of the images and also painted examples, which I can't provide at the moment. But if we look here, there's one thing I'd like to talk about. Due to how the models are laid out on the sprue, there's a mould line that runs down the middle of the face. I've taken an example here if my camera will focus on it, and you can really see that there's a slight miscasting and misalignment between the two sides of the face. Now let's look at some of the issues with the sprues themselves. They're nice figures, very crisp, very nicely laid out, minimal amounts of flash. But if you notice, the greatcoat rolls, they're separate pieces, but they're kind of they're moulded onto the front, so you can't choose if you leave them on or leave them off. You have to have them, but then you have to glue on these separate parts. This is a poor design choice in my opinion. I prefer them to be sculpted on. And one of the issues I found was that they don't seem to have a specific role for each model's body. As such, there's a little bit of a gap when you're sticking them on. I found that some fitted better to others, but it wasn't really clear which ones were supposed to go with which body. I'm going to try a couple out and see what I can do, but there's still a couple of gaps. Now if you're a real stickler you could probably add some green stuff or some milliput here, but I'll probably just glue them together as is. However, this is just the first of a couple of issues which I think mean this set isn't quite as useful for kit bashing as some of their other kits in the same range, such as the British Infantry for the Zulu Wars. And again, just to show off some of the crisp details on some of the jackets, even though that's slightly obscured by the greatcoat roll. Now, moving across from the sprues of infantry, we're going to look at the command sprue. This is where my biggest disappointment lies. Whilst there's loads of character and I really like some of the poses, there are a couple of problems and I'd like to talk about them some more. I particularly like this officer with his cap, a really characterful face, but there's only one of these sprues per box, and if you buy both boxes, both have the same command sprue. We're just going to look at the standard bearer's parts and looking at this ribbon, which the information leaflet informs me is for battle honours. Again, this is another mystifying choice. There's only one revolver and one sword arm for the officer. If we look at a comparison in a minute with the British, we'll see that they had more options for the officers and NCOs. Again, the drummer, with this drum in two parts like this is an unusual arrangement. But there's only one pair of arms for the drummer, so he has to be playing. Whereas when we compare this with other sprues in the range, you can see there's a greater variety of details and options here. I'm just showing the example, which is the British Infantry from the 1870s, and you can see that the drums come with two different arms, so you can either have both sticks being held together. There's an NCO with sergeant stripes, there's more options for revolvers, and there's even a little dog, which is a lovely little extra. Again, I just think that if you're not using these for Franco-Prussian War, you probably get a slightly better deal elsewhere if you want something to kit bash. Just looking at the British sprue as well for the infantry, you can see there's a few more options here. Bandaged heads, Glengarry caps, and a figure holding a hat, so they're a little bit more individual, and they're a little less useful for mass battles. One thing which is a good positive is that this set, like several other sets, is really interchangeable. I'm messing around here by adding a North Star Barbarian and then a Peri-Medieval head, but just think if you're doing colonial games, how many Ansar or kind of auxiliary troops you could make. Now these are finished products. Again, what do you expect from the Perrys? They're high quality, they know what they're doing, and they're really useful. But one thing I would comment on is this casualty figure. Do you need so many?